In this tip, we're going to be talking about change the letters in your search. You probably have no clue as why I'm talking about that, but that will become clear here in a slide or two. If you do any kind of newspaper research online as part of a school project, or for history research, or for genealogy, then you may have been puzzled by some of the search results you get. And in some cases, the lack of search results that you have received. That is all about the scanning of the newspaper and the application of the optical character recognition (OCR) process that creates the search index. There's really a simple explanation for these issues, and it all has to do with quality. Quality of the original material, the original newsprint. Could be 115 years old or maybe 200 years old. Was it old and brittle when it was scanned? Was it yellow? Did it have dirt on it, creases, lots of ink spots? All of the above. Scan of the newsprint oftentimes is then taken by the OCR process to create a digital representation, which is called the search index. But maybe the original newsprint was scanned and a microfilm of the newspaper was made. Maybe there was another copy of the microfilm to make a third iteration, if you will, of the newspaper. Okay? So if it's, regardless whether it's the first iteration, second iteration, or third iteration, every time you do another iteration, the quality suffers. And as a result, the search index suffers. OCR software, some are better than others. What about the writing? Maybe the author misspelled something. Maybe they misspelled the person's name. So even though they wrote it down and the typesetter got it right, you'll never be able to find it because it was spelled incorrectly in the first place. Maybe the typesetter put in the wrong letter. After reading what the author wrote, maybe they put in the wrong letter. So it's going to show up as a misspelling. The moral of the story is you'll never get a perfect digital index that represents what was originally written by the author and publisher. In fact, I could almost guarantee you that if I took a newspaper that was printed yesterday, scanned it, and applied the OCR process, it would be doubtful that a 100% perfect digital index would be created. It might be, but just as much it might not be. Let's look at an example. On the left is a clipping from about 115 years ago. On the right is the search index, the digital index, created from the scanning and OCR process. As you can see, the first title says "The Old Year Gone," and all that's in there is "Old Year" in the index. And it starts out pretty good. Dr. Talmadge speaks of the arrival of the, and then "new" is nowhere to be found. And then it skips to "all the timid," and then it skips all the way down to 1901, and January 5th by Lewis Klopsch, looks like is what his name is nowhere to be found. And then as you go furthermore, you see that some letters are, quote, misspelled, some words are missing, etc., etc. So this is the representation of that 115-year-old newspaper. So this is a real live representation, actually the real live database collection for the Algona Public Library. Let's do a search just for fun of a word in an Iowa collection that is obviously going to be in there somewhere, and that's Iowa, I-O-W-A. And we're going to hit go, and let's see what the results are. Okay, as you can see, there's 181,000 results with the word Iowa in it, I-O-W-A. But remember, we talked about how some letters, and we showed you in the previous slide, how some letters did not come out the way we thought they should. Let's try something here. An I is sometimes interpreted as a 1. So let's do a search with 1-O-W-A and see what happens. You can see there's 125 results of 1-O-W-A. Now that's supposed to be Iowa, I-O-W-A, but the search index has 1-O-W-A because during the OCR process it interpreted that I as a 1. Okay? Let's try another one. Let's try I0WA and see what that does. Because oftentimes a 0 and an O are exchanged for one another. There's 153 results. You see that? I0WA. So there are several there with that string of letters. Let's try another one. Let's try I-O. Sometimes a V and a W come out the same. VA. Let's try that one. And as you can see here, it found some of those. Only 33 of them, but there are some that say IOVA, even though it's supposed to be IOWA. Let's try something different. Let's try Nebraska. And see what that turns up. There'll be a lot of those results now. And there we go. There's almost 30,000 that have Nebraska in it. But sometimes a small E and a small O get misinterpreted. So let's try Nebraska and see what happens. There you go. There's only 12 of them, but there's Nebraska, Nebraska. It's supposed to be Nebraska with an E, but not, it comes out as Nebraska in the search index. So, knowing all that, knowing that some letters are exchanged in the search index, because remember, when you're searching, you are not searching against what was represented by the author in the original newspaper. What you are searching is the search index, which is taken from the original newspaper, the scan of the original newspaper, maybe a microfilm copy of that original scan, and then the application of the OCR process, and that creates a search index. So you are not searching against what was originally there, even though that's what you would want if it was a perfect world. You are searching against the search index. So because you know ahead of time that some of these letters are exchanged, why not search for some of the letter pairs that are exchanged? An E and an O, an I and a 1, a 0 and an O. See what I'm talking about? So anticipating that ahead of time, if you know that an N and an M are sometimes interchanged, if you're looking for the word Wilson, try entering W-I-L-S-O-M and see what happens. Or as we just showed you, an O and a 0 are often interchanged. Type in W-I-L-S-0-N and see what happens. Moral of the story is you might find some articles that are misinterpreted through the scanning and OCR process and thus the search index. But these are articles that are really about the target name, Wilson. Okay. You will lead to an improvement of maybe 2 or 3%, maybe 5%, maybe as much as 10% in your search results if you incorporate this, what I call, changed the letters technique. One of my associates said they got, in one instance, a 20% improvement, but I think that's pretty unusual. The bottom line is you're going to get better results and more results if you change the letters. So what letter pairs are often confused? And here's a list of approximately, 18 or 20 of them. And just look at them. RN and M. See how close that RN is to an M? H and a B. All it takes is a little ink spot right there at the bottom of the H and it becomes a B. A capital D and an O. We showed you an I and a 1, or maybe a small L, a slash, an exclamation point. Those are all often interchanged. We gave a demonstration of a 0 and an O. An E and an O. Remember we did the Nebraska search and Nebraska search? C and an E. They are very similar. R and an N. All an R needs is a little wing spot right below the little tail of the R, and you've got an N. Brackets and an L. N, L, and an M. Look over here. N and an RI. Look how close that RI is to an N. That could be easily mistaken for an RI rather than an N, or vice versa. A V and a Y. A Y is just a V with a little tail, and that could be an ink spot. And we have a number of capital letters here. So as you can see, if you anticipate there may be some confusion, if you will, in the search index, try exchanging the letters for some of these letter pairs and doing the search, and you will get more search results because they are there to be found. You just need to find them. Okay? We talked about the ink spot. H to a B, V to a Y, R to an N. Okay? Change your search criteria, exchange the letter string you're looking for to include some of these alternative letter and letter pairs, and see what happens. I think you will be very pleasantly surprised.